The soldiers are still very much admired, still very much respected. The military is still very much revered.
What was uncertain was if the army would take a side and which one.
I have asked the government to resign, and I will appoint a new one starting tomorrow.
Well, I think the impact of that message was it was widely seen as a little too late. He almost failed to realize that the anger and the protesters had one goal in mind, and that was him. They weren't upset about policies, they weren't upset about ministerial postings, they weren't upset about declarations, they were really upset about the president. They feel that the president had usurped his powers, had driven Egypt into the wrong direction for nearly 30 years, and had eroded the dignity of life that they want.
Where I actually am is 24 floors above the NDP headquarters in a building not far from our bureau, but to try and get more of an idea of what is going on out there. Now, at the moment, the NDP headquarters is impossible to make out the shape of even the building. There is so much black smoke pouring out from it.
Probably the most iconic moment for me, seeing the National Democratic Party headquarters go up in flames and seeing it burnt out and no one coming to its rescue. No one even bothered to try and put it out.
A scene until now unimaginable. The symbolic seat of Hosni Mubarak's 30-year power ablaze.
The headquarters of President Hosni Mubarak's ruling NDP party are still ablaze on Saturday morning. You can see the smoke and still some flames coming from the higher windows. Every vehicle in sight here has been set alight by protesters.
We saw the scope of the damage, and we saw that the city skyline of Cairo had changed.
By Saturday, tensions at the protests themselves had actually eased. Around 50,000 people, surprisingly undeterred by what had so far taken place, filled Tahrir Square, still hoping for their calls to be met, for Mubarak to resign from office.
The atmosphere is one of great celebration and one also of great defiance.
Certainly quite a significant political development in just the last 10 minutes. Omar Suleiman, who's already being described as one of the world's most powerful spy chiefs, now vice president of Egypt.
Rather than conceding, Mubarak was installing a new government, consolidating his power. News of this attracted fresh solidarity for the protesters from outside the country.
Well, I'm standing in front of the Egyptian embassy in Washington, where people are chanting, "Down with Mubarak and down with Suleiman."
The people are crying out with demands. Hear them, hear them.
Yet official reaction from Egypt's biggest ally, the United States, was muted.
These are images President Hosni Mubarak will not want Egyptians to see.
We just got some frantic phone calls from eyewitnesses in various suburbs of downtown Cairo saying that they have seen some thugs that they say belong to the regime out and about on motorcycles trying to loot some of the stores there in the absence of any police presence.
Gamal Mubarak's political career ended on January 25th, 2011.
Yesterday should be the last day of the legitimacy of the regime.
By evening, the composure of Saturday morning had turned to chaos and grief. Still, the Egypt seen by viewers watching state TV was an entirely different one. A sanitized view, not one of a country immersed in revolution. Anarchy appears to overwhelm streets from which police had now vanished.
We knew that the Egyptian government, which always watches Al Jazeera very closely, had begun to crack down on the network because it had by then already disconnected the Al Jazeera Arabic signal and tried to disrupt the service.
Let me just tell you about the targeting of Al Jazeera for our coverage in the last hour or so. Our officers were entered. We believe it was intelligence security. We've also heard that it could be the presidential palace security. They came in, they told us to stop filming. They said that we are causing great damage.
No criminal charges against Al Jazeera are cited during the raid, or have been since. The only explanation given, an unsubstantiated claim that the channel had incited the revolt. Tahrir Square now looks more like a pilgrimage site. Close to 3,000 gather as our newsroom receives reports that military orders to shoot agitators were so far being defied by soldiers. Our correspondents dispersed, melting into the crowds.
We are in the middle of Tahrir Square. You can probably hear above me the military helicopter. It's been hovering overhead for several hours now, at least from what we've gathered since we've been here.
And every time they circled overhead, it's as if they were flying a little bit lower, and it would make this incredibly loud, thunderous sound. So we really felt that indeed we had reached some kind of critical tipping point.
As fighter jets roared above and military vehicles amassed on the edge of Tahrir Square, protesters felt they were on the brink of a pivotal moment, either the bloodiest or the most unifying in their recent history. The standoff in Tahrir Square on Sunday the 30th of January embodied the wider conundrum. Who, in the end, would break the political deadlock? The president or the people?
Egyptians expect complete and utter change. The barrier has been broken. The limit of their demands is basically the sky.
The lack of leadership means that there is no clarity as to how things will go.
We all felt that, Egypt had definitely changed. The images that were being beamed around the world had definitely changed the dynamic of the interaction. And we knew that by then, Egyptians had begun to break through the fear factor that had essentially paralyzed and crippled them for 30 years.
The images that you are seeing not only important for the people of Egypt, but are undoubtedly going to have wide reverberations all across the Arab and the Islamic world.
To invest in a country with nearly 450,000 university graduates per year, please push the button. For more power to your global business, invest in Turkey.
Home to a diversity of rare species, Latvia's pristine woodlands are a place of magic. But with a strained economy and an eager market, forests are rapidly perishing, and with them their inhabitants. People and Power investigates how 60% of Latvia's timber ends up on UK shelves with a questionable seal of approval. Latvia's pulp fiction, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Egyptian people will be the ones who will make the change.
We are mobilizing tomorrow a mass protest from Tahrir Square.
If we decided to give in now, they will hunt us one by one.
As China undergoes profound changes, competition for jobs becomes a struggle to survive. Two graduates fresh out of college seek employment in a city of 8 million people. Now entering the real world, the graduates become increasingly desperate and begin to question their college-trained talents. It's a time of hope and frustration for the workforce of the future. Faces of China, at this time on Al Jazeera.
There's no honorable way to kill. No gentle way to destroy. There is nothing good in war, except its ending.
This is Al Jazeera.